Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Spoken Misc, the podcast about anything and everything, but mostly about reconnecting. This episode is special because it's the first guest episode, and I'm here with my friend Nico, who I've known since my freshman year of high school. We first bonded over a mutual obsession with zombies and became fast friends. Welcome to the show, Nico. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing really great. We've been having some technical difficulties, so it's been kind of funny, but it's all good. It's all good. This is what happens when you got a social distance and we can't be in the same car.
Well, the interview process in general never goes off that hitch.
Yeah, that's going to be brutal, but that's what we do this for. That's why we have the first episode. Okay. And I know we have a lot of questions to get through, but I was wondering if you could introduce yourself to people who might not know you.
Yeah. My name is Nico, almost 25. Current occupation, I would say, is a streamer, trying to get there full time. And, hobbies include listening to music and like writing and playing music, art in general, like literature, film, basically all encompassing. And then I guess because some of the questions that we discussed in advance do pertain to things like race, I should say that I am biracial. I am half white, half Mexican. So I am one of the people who's more situated or more uniquely situated to having perspective from both sides.
All right. Cool. Is there anything else you want to
add? No, just thankful to be here.
All right, cool. So, Nico, I picked you to be my first guest because of all the people that I know. You're the person I've reconnected with the most during this situation, during this shelter in place. And you are also the person who I think most sympathizes with my need to have meaningful and like deep conversations. And it's something we haven't done in a long time because of life getting in the way and other stuff. So I wanted to start off with a simple question. What is something you miss doing due to shelter in place?
Well, the thing about that is I have to say it's just like seeing people outside of my home, like hanging out with friends and stuff, people who I'm not biologically related to.
Yeah.
Just because my lifestyle hasn't changed too much. I work from home, and most of my time anyway was spent playing video games and like playing music and consuming media. So for me, it really hasn't changed my life too much, except that I have to wear a mask when I go out and gloves and stuff. It's more just I miss normalcy.
Yeah, I kind of feel that too. Like normally before then I would only go out during like when I had gigs, and the other time I'd just be inside my room writing. And now it kind of just feels like all the time is writing time, which is a both good and bad feeling, I guess.
Yeah,
but I totally agree. Like,
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go for it.
Oh no, I'm just gonna say I'm a pretty boring person when it comes to stuff like that. I don't go out much except like drinking or karaoke, so it's not really a lot that I'm losing here.
That's not boring though. You know what's boring is when your exciting trip or exciting adventure for the week is going to Safeway to buy ramen and hot Cheetos. That's where I'm at.
When I first moved to SoCal, I spent the first like 3 months there. I would go almost every day to Safeway, to Vons, but since it's owned by the same people, the stores look identical. So when I get homesick, I would just go to Safeway or Vons and hang out because it looked exactly like the one here in town.
Huh. I did not know that. Or I guess I kind of figured. Because whatever. I don't want to talk about Vons. But like, I totally resonate with what you said about not being able to see people, which is kind of another part to this podcast. It's like half the reason why I wanted to start it, because like I can't go over to see you. I can't hang out with you. Like I can't like pick you up in a car and drive around to, somewhere where it's just like quiet and just hang out and talk,
Yeah.
So this is really trying to recapture that feeling, that type of like ambience, and we'll see how we do, I guess. But I think it's working. The darky is usually more important than I think the location. and the means. But while we're on the topic of friendship, I have another question that I wanted to throw at you. Um, we've been friends for a really long time, and I've always kind of like wondered, what would you say is the most like disappointing thing in or about our friendship?
I read that question and I tried to think about anything, but there's nothing I'd say I'm disappointed with or unsatisfied with. You know, I think
Hmm.
we went through a lot as kids, and when we were teenagers, we did stupid shit. But everyone, are we cool to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you can swear. I don't give a
Okay,
fuck.
just want to make sure before I start dropping f bombs. Um, we did stupid shit when we were kids, and we made some mistakes that weren't really impactful or anything. But like ultimately, this is one of my most, I'd say, satisfying friendships. It's like you and probably like you and Chris, and then Jacob and Jesse are probably the ones that I've had for a long time that haven't burnt out.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think a large part falls on me. I try to be a good friend, but you know, you and I both have the same kind of issue with depression. I guess not kind of issue. Like you and I both have depression, and it's really hard sometimes for me to get out of that funk when I get stuck in that cycle in my head.
Hmm.
And I'm very isolating when I'm feeling down. When I'm not feeling completely in control, I tend to isolate to handle my problems alone because I don't really know how to rely on other people.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel that too. Um, I'm glad I'm not disappointing as a friend. Is there something that like you're kind of disappointed like about, like not like necessarily our friendship, but like maybe we don't talk as much, or maybe we don't hang out as much. Is there something like that that you can think of?
I mean, I wish we could hang out more, but we're both, I mean, you more than me have been busy. I'm not really doing a whole lot right now. But I know that you have goals and your career is actually something that's happening currently. So I'm more understanding as to why you don't hang out very much. I don't know. Like I said, I think a lot of it falls on me as far as why we don't hang out or why I don't see you, or we don't talk anymore. Is just I'm more wrapped up in myself, I guess, than anything else. I'm really disappointed that we didn't move in together. That's a big one.
I mean, that's nobody's fault. I mean, that's
Oh,
just
it's
the way.
mine, but
I mean, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And you know what? If we had moved in, like moved to LA during January, I never would have worked on uh, something that I can no longer legally say because contracted, but I could never have worked on that. So maybe it kind of worked out, like the life is funny kind of thing. But
yeah, I mean, everything happens for a reason. I guess it's just that's something I'm disappointed in. I was very excited about it.
yeah, I mean, there's still later on. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've asked you two questions. I'm like totally down to keep asking you all the questions that I had. But is there one question that you wanted to ask really badly?
I guess I do actually have one. I think that
Hmm.
I think might be interesting to talk about now. It's more lighthearted than a lot of my other questions were.
Uh,
Um, so I guess my thing is, you and I are both super into anime. We've talked about that before a lot. And
yeah.
we actually had a really good discussion recently with our mutual friend Enrique about the, I guess the appeal or the appeal of anime in Western society.
Uh huh.
So my question is, why hasn't anime reached a broader audience in the West? Are Americans ready for that style of storytelling, and could they ever be?
Okay. I really love this question like so much because like I find it so cool to see how much people like gravitate towards towards anime and towards a culture. Like this answer is going to be kind of long, but I think it has reached a wide audience in the West. I think that it could technically have more audience to reach, but at the same time, um, maybe those people were never like going to be a part of the audience anyways. You know how like there's only people who like action movies, or there's only people who like a certain celebrity and they go to see their movies, but then they can give a rat's ass about anything else. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that it's reached a pretty broad audience, at least here in California too, because we have such a high Asian American population that it kind of just like feels more natural to be a part of it, I guess. And I don't know if that kind of sounds a little bit racist or not, but like it's more accepted, I guess. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like at the same time, I can also kind of see why it wouldn't reach a broader audience, because like there's animes that I think are good that I like. Like I love Naruto. Naruto is fantastic. It's my favorite. And if anybody wants to fight me, fight me. I will defend it to the death. Naruto and Naruto Shippuden are my favorite anime of all time. Probably not going to be beat. Um, but that's also a very Western inspired type show. Like Naruto himself was designed to attract Western audiences. He's blue-eyed, blonde hair. Like he was specifically designed to kind of grasp the West.
Which is interesting, actually. That was I was reading something a little bit ago talking about that exact appeal of the blonde hair, blue eyed character. Yes, in anime, because that's what I guess they think we look like and what we gravitate towards. When in reality, most people in the West still are dark hair, dark eyed. I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
black hair, but we have primarily brown hair, brown eyed people here.
Mm-hmm.
Which seems interesting because I mean, Super Saiyan Goku is the same way. It was done purposefully to show purity and then to also attract a Western audience or continue to maintain a grasp on a Western audience that Dragon Ball didn't have prior to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because I'm going to tie it to Hollywood and how Hollywood acts, I guess. Because it's always the blue-eyed, brown hair, white dude that's saving the world in every single movie. It's like the same
Mm-hmm.
three white dudes. Um, I think that they do that in an effort to kind of grasp that audience, because like it's a large audience that is already catered to and that already has a built-in audience, and so it's easier for them to like throw their shoes into the character, I guess. At
Mm-hmm.
least that's what I think is why they make them, I guess, more American or more Western. Um, but then to go back to my point of why it's not broader than it could be, a lot of anime seems very niche to me, like
Mm-hmm.
um, like there's things that I vaguely know of, like something about food wars or like chefs or something, like very popular ones. I know there's My Hero Academia, which I'm interested in watching, but I haven't gone around to. Um, but like they all kind of have weird niches, I guess I would say. Like they're very different compared to typical like Western animation.
Mm-hmm. Well, sorry, I love that you brought up My Hero Academia
Okay.
specifically
Yeah.
because it is, I think, a good example. Like you said, that it has reached a Western audience. It's reaching a point where it's becoming more mainstream because My Hero Academia is, I mean, it's anime, but it's drawn so heavily on Western comic books and superheroes to blend the cultures together, and that's why it's reaching. That's why I think it's reaching such a huge popularity. Is it's a blend of both. It's accessible to people because it mixes both. It's not just anime. It's anime superheroes. It's anime Avengers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, I haven't watched it not because I don't want to watch it, but because I don't have a Crunchyroll account for the most part. Um, and I don't know if I have the ability to pay for it, especially right now. It's kind of been my barrier to why I haven't gotten into more anime, I guess. It's just that like I watch what's on Netflix sometimes. Like I watched a little bit of Seven Deadly Sins, like the first episode. I thought it was kind of nifty. I thought it was cool. I mean, I didn't get super into it though, so I never finished it. Um, and
If I recall correctly, that's French actually.
It's French.
Yeah, if
Huh.
I remember correctly, it's not even actually Japanese. It's a French manga that,
Really?
or I guess not French, but like written by the stories by a French person, something. I don't remember exactly, but it's one of the few that isn't Japanese in origin.
Huh. I did not know that. Well, that's cool. See, then that brings it to the blending of anime. When you mix cultures, it kind of gets in a wider audience, I guess. Um, and then at the same time, I feel like anime has a lot of tropes that I think are dumb. Like harem animes. Like those like are always like they always kind of rub me the wrong way. It's always like a very like distinct like dude centric type of show. There's always like
Wait,
etchy stuff.
yeah, it's supposed to be for you to rub yourself, not it. That's the entire point of harem anime is just projecting the viewer. Oh, I'm the main character, and all the girls like me because they don't in reality.
Oof, big oof. But that's the thing.
And I'm
It kind of like turns people off to it, like, or at least some people might think that might be all there is, or something.
mhm.
There's something that I do have a little bit of problem with is that anime storytelling is always super fucking convoluted because it's always continuously being made, even if they're mangas too. Like mangas are convoluted, but I'm only basing this on the fact that I've only read Naruto, and I think a bunch of Attack on Titan when it came out. And this was to that point that I think they only had season one like available for anywhere.
Mhm.
But like it just some story plots just get so convoluted to me. And this is coming from just not just as a writer, but as just like a normal reader. Like I'm just like, what the fuck is going on half the time?
Yeah, it's so not to spoil anything with Korra. I think you're actually ahead of us at this point.
Yeah, we're on the last season.
Cool. Yeah, then you're a season ahead of me. Um, so and not to spoil anything in general, like or in particular for the audience, but in general, a big issue that Korra faces is power scaling. And it's a big problem in anime in general. And I would argue that it's more so anime than anything else, but it is present in comic books and other similar media. In that you make the hero so powerful, like Aang, they took all that power to defeat Fire Lord Ozai, right?
Mm-hmm.
It took Avatar State, even imperfect Avatar State, to beat Fire Lord Ozai. And sure, that was in Sozin's Comet, which gives them like a 10 times multiplier to the power or something, and that's great. But like Quora then is now a full grown woman and avatar, like fully fledged, with a mastered avatar state, and yet someone who's weaker than a firebender on Solin's Comet is a challenge for her. Like you made the stakes so big with the original avatar that there's no way that anything Korra does could ever match up to it unless you push it further. And so everything has to become a step further every time. And that's the thing that made Dragon Ball lose its course. It's why I argue that Naruto Shippuden has a really terrible ending, like really unsatisfying ending.
I I have thoughts about that too, but we'll save it for a different day because I feel like we could talk for way too much time about that too. But like to go back to the Korra thing, the one thing that I do kind of like about that is that it like the power scaling is totally true. Like they need to find bigger, badder enemies. Um, but at the same time, I like the whole psychological and political aspect to the enemies themselves. Like her enemies aren't just like, oh, the evil fire lord. It's this is an idea. This is a way of thinking that this
Mm-hmm.
super powerful being has to fight with her powers. And I really really like that. Like I've already like that's kind of how I've been writing my story. Like this is the what kind of enemy do you throw at someone who's all powerful, or who could be all powerful? And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like you throw ideas at them, ideas that conflict their own concepts of the world. And I really like that. Power scaling is always an issue though, and I totally agree with that. Um, so if anime can't really control like how crazy a story gets, I think that's probably a little bit of the reason why it doesn't reach a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people kind of want something simple to follow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, especially here in America, we have a very simple approach to our stories. And that's why it's rare that things like Parasite would win an Oscar, not just the race behind it, but the challenging to ideas or to our preconceptions about the medium. And not just with like foreign film, but in general, things that are more complex or that have more depth to them tend to not do so well commercially, because I think most audiences here in America don't want to have their preconceptions challenged. They want to be comfortable with what they're watching. It's like pop music, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Pop music does well with the same four chords, the same foundation to the music. And it rewards the ear by being able to recognize what's coming next in the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why that's why it's so popular. It's like a treat for your brain when you can recognize patterns enough in music to tell what note's coming next. It's also accessible, easy to sing along with it, easy to listen to it and to digest it because it's not challenging anything about you.
That makes sense. So to branch off of that, let's move on to a different question. So what do you think about the state of modern music trends then? Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
Oh, it's hard to not sound like an elitist douchebag when I talk about music, because I have such a deep hatred for pop music.
That's fine.
It's too cookie cutter for me. I'm sick of hearing the same Max Martin music, or the same beats and stuff produced by Benny Blanco. Like I'm so over hearing the same engineers over and over and over again. I want to hear something that challenges the world for me. I mean, I know a lot of people hate country music, and I'm not a super huge fan of it anymore myself. But the thing with country music is it tends to be storytelling, especially classic stuff. A lot of Garth Brooks, Brooks and Dunn, they tell a story in the song. It's not just that they're playing music or they sound good when they're singing. It's that they're sharing a bit of their personality with you. They're sharing a bit of their story with you, their politics, their belief system. Like these are things that are told to you in the form of music. It's like reading a book, but there's music with it, and you don't see that with a lot of modern pop music or even rock music anymore.
I would say you don't see it like in general. Like it's very rare to find any music that tells a story. Because like you said, pop music is meant to just be an earworm and just get stuck in your head. So you repeat it and it's just so it can get stuck in your head. Like I have a problem with pop music too, I guess, for the same reasons, but mostly because it kind of makes every like genre, I guess, it waters it down a bit, and it makes it like not as thought out, not as artistic. It feels like corporate. It feels cookie cutter. It feels like someone threw this in a lab and this is how we're going to make money. And that's exactly what I hear on the radio, or if I still listen to radio. So I kind of tend to avoid pop stuff because of that.
And it is. And that thing too is it's getting to a point now where we can no longer avoid pop music. Because it used to be that if you didn't like a genre, like if you didn't like country music, don't go to 95.3 KRTY. That's country music. You don't want to listen to it. You avoid that station. Now it's like, let's say you hate country music, so you're going to listen to something pop and top 40 shit. But now all of a sudden it's Dan and Shay with Justin Bieber, and they're doing a weird country pop blend, And we saw people like Taylor Swift was one of the first ones that made a really big transition from country to pop. It was really seamless. It was smooth. And I have a feeling the more we talk about music, the more my almost obsession with Taylor Swift is going to come out. I think she's a phenomenal artist. She gets shit on a lot and she is pop. But like, if you listen to Lover, her album is really good. It's very well thought out. It's obviously got some very formulaic songs, some Max Martin influence. But like the thing with Taylor Swift is she doesn't write all of her music. It's all personal. She's telling you her story and her perspective. And this one isn't about a breakup. This album is about being in love. It's about the feelings of being with someone, the things that you hope for, the things that hurt you with them, the melancholia of being in love comes out in these really sweet songs. It's nice. It's something I really appreciate, and I think that she doesn't get enough recognition.
Huh. I never actually like thought about that because I've always been like kind of like angry at Taylor Swift for becoming more pop, you know? Like I used to like fucking every other middle schooler. Like I fell in love with like fucking Love Story and shit like that. And like all her like first album country stuff. And I'm like seeing her go from that like naivety, I guess, to money making pop machine. And it kind of got me disappointed and made me fall off the wagon, you know, because I saw that it's like selling out, you know. Everyone always talks about being a sellout, and she kind of always seemed to be kind of like that because she went from her roots to pop.
Oh, and you're right in that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just drink a bit of water. And it's kind of like my gripes with not just Taylor Swift, but with a lot of artists is when they become more poppy. Like, there's a few like rock bands that became more pop, you know, like over the years too, and it really irritates me. I can't think of many right now, but like Imagine Dragons became more pop, and I kind of stopped listening to them because of it. Like,
hey man, I got a great example for you from before we were even fucking born. People used to like Metallica used to be this really like hard metal, like you were a fan. Metallica was hard shit. It was a satanic stuff your parents didn't want you to listen to. They had their long hair. They basically invented speed metal. But then, like, they cut their hair and started doing stadiums and started making a lot of money, and their music became more palatable to a broader audience. And when people would call them out, like, "Hey, you're sellout. Hey, you guys, you guys used to be so like real, and now you're just here for the money." They were like, "Yeah, of course we sold out, man. Like that's the point of doing this professionally is we want to make money off it. We want to succeed with this. But like we're us, we're the same people, but of course we sold out a bit. It's how you get to the next level. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to make that transition into a quote sellout. I think it's when you have no essence of the artist left that it's a problem. When the music that you make or the quote unquote art you make could have been made by anyone but you. It doesn't matter. You're just a face to something that the corporations created. Like One Direction or what's that one girl group that Camila Cabello was in?
I'm not sure.
It's not Destiny's Child because all I can think of, but that was Beyonce. That was a long time ago.
That was way long.
Fifth Harmony. That's what it was. They're put together by a bunch of other people. They come together to create a group. It doesn't matter though who's in it because they're not writing the music. They're not making the beats. The lyrics aren't theirs. They're just a face to sell a product that has been created at every point by the Hollywood machine.
Yeah. I think I can agree to that, like as long as you have some essence of your soul still left, then I guess you're not a sellout. But I don't know. It always kinds of I'm always kind of disappointed, when something was like when you see something that was very impassioned or you hear something that was full of passion, and now you listen to their modern stuff and it's got none of that. It's got like similar themes, but you can tell like some of the magic is gone. And I don't know if it's like because we're growing up or if because they're changing, and it's probably a mix of both, I guess.
I mean, if you want to know, I guess, the true merit of an artist, I'd say listen to their sophomore album. Listen to the second album, because that's the one where you can see if they took a lot of input from the studio or if they really pursued their art. Ed Sheeran, his first album was phenomenal. I think it's up there. I'd say top 100 albums of all time. His first album, if you're really into especially pop or acoustic or kind of music, it's really good. It's all very personal and real. And then Multiply came out. Multiply was good. It was still Ed, but there was a lot more pop influence, and you can tell. And then Divide comes out, which is the most recent one he did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where he talks about like, oh yeah, Galway Girl is on there. It's because we knew that it would sell to the Irish audience. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
it's songs that are written, but they're like not really by him. It's just to make
Money.
money to be easy to access to everyone. And like it's Ed Sheeran. If you slap his name on any song, it's gonna do well.
Yeah.
You know, that's you can tell he's not anymore, I guess, is this great bright-eyed young artist who had a story to tell like he was when he first came out.
Yeah.
Now he's, you know, just another pop star.
Mm-hmm.
To get back to the question, I guess that's the trend I think we're seeing with music is a lot of this watering down this spoon-fed corporation music. It's all it is really is the music that's top 40s, it's Billboard, the standardization of what success means to an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you know, how many number one hits do you have? The Billboard top charts, the iTunes charts, Spotify's charts. These are the things that tell you if music is good. So people only listen to that. When there's a lot of underground artists that are really good across the board, all genres, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't like City and Color, like Ray LaMontagne, The Luck is really good. You know, even like fucking Lil Dicky slaps, dude. His show is really good. It's really funny and poignant, and his music has always been good. His freestyles are really good, and even though he's a funny rapper, he has flow like a lot of artists don't have anymore. I'm so sick
Mm-hmm.
of this mumble rap, the same triplets over and over again, like, and all the beats are engineered by the same guys. They're not anything special, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Even rap music is becoming just a way to make a lot of money and selling a story that you never lived. Like that's all these guys who talk about trapping, who talk about the game and the things they've done and been through. They aren't. Look at Takashi 6ix9ine, dude. He's just a snitch, you know. Like for
Mm-hmm.
all this hardcore bullshit he talks, no, he acts like the persona he plays. He's just a little bitch, you know. He just quickly and just wants to make sure that he doesn't go to jail. But like, if you want to talk this hard shit and get face tattoos and act like you're a thug, act like you're hard, you should probably back that up. I don't act that way because I'm not that, and I'm not going to back it up. You know, like I'm a little white boy from fucking suburbia. I'm not a gangster. I've never trapped. I've never sold drugs or really done drugs but I don't pretend to, you know?
Yeah.
So I'd say make sure that who you present yourself as is authentic enough that you don't ever have to get questioned.
Okay. I can agree to that too. And you know, I'm gonna just tie this into a question you threw into our little discussion here that you sent to me um, about cultural melding. Do you want to explain your question a little bit before I get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So cultural melding, I guess like, so to explain this, I guess I had a conversation once with Haley, my fiance's dad. We were talking about race in general because this has been before Coco came out, when they were first like announcing they were doing Coco.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Mexico. I'm very proud of my Mexican heritage and my culture. And all I could think was, wow, cool, another fucking movie about Dia de Muertos, because that's all it ever is. Dia de los Muertos, Mexicans are just Dia de los Muertos. That's all they do, that and fucking serapes. And it bothered me because it's like, great, Disney, another white company, taking my culture and just taking a shit on it, saying we are one note, one dimensional. The only thing that makes us special or different is Dia de los Muertos. And there's no respect for what that day means, because it's not just Mexican Halloween. It's a celebration of life by celebrating the dead, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Like it's a way for us to feel like we are connected to our ancestors, to the deceased, to the people who came and were a part of our life. It's acknowledging they're never gone. That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, Coco's not going to do that. They're just going to do some bullshit story and just surface level. But they didn't. They went in. They went to Mexico. They learned. They were there for 4 years in my home state of Guanajuato, like talking about how, or learning about the culture, the architecture, the things that make my culture beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And well, you know, not just mine. It's just, you know, the things that make our culture beautiful, that makes it unique.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really weird example, but I don't know if you've seen Trolls 2 World Tour.
I have not, and I don't think I ever will.
listen, man, that is the Paddington 2 of our generation, okay? Like, oh man, what a good kids movie. What a good animated movie. Like it the whole point of the movie is actually just that yes, we are all the same, but we're not. And it's important that we know that we are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Like the quick synopsis, pop trolls, want to fucking sing pop music, but there's also happens to be funk trolls and rock trolls and and then there's like niche trolls, like there's the reggaeton trolls and the K-pop trolls. And it's weird inclusions, but like at the end of it, it winds up being that the things that make us different make us great. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, we are all a part of something bigger, but the individuality is important to keep. And so my question, I guess, bringing up that is cultural melding a good thing? Is the more I feel like do you feel like the more we come together, the more we start to try to, I guess, kind of erase boundaries and borders? Do you think that we're kind of giving up some of the individuality of culture that makes cultures great? Like, will people ever really be able to accept another person's culture in its entirety or adopt parts of it in a way that aren't ironic or with any misunderstanding or
Racism?
Yeah.
I think that cultural melding is good to a point. I'm gonna explain through a artist who I found, like, I think within the past year. Her name's Daniela Andrade. She's an artist from Canada. She's Honduran,
Wow.
and her music is some of the best music I've heard in such a long time because it blends the indie rock pop aesthetic with Spanish, and it is some of my favorite music because that's kind of how I feel. I don't feel 100% Mexican. I don't feel 100% American because I am Mexican American. I am 200% all of it. I am a melding of cultures. I'm whitewashed as fuck, and I know that, but I also understand Spanish. I talk to my mom in Spanish as often as I can. I've visited Mexico to go see my cousins, and I've done terrible Spanish with them. But her music kind of reminds me that, like, it's okay to be who you are, which is where you're from, but also where you're going. And her music's just super good. Like, it's just really well made, and like her voice is fantastic. So I definitely think you should look her up, like, later. She's really good. But like, whenever I think about her music, that's kind of how I want my stories to be. I want them to be Mexican American. I want them to show my culture intertwining with American culture, and that's kind of what Alien Boy is. My biggest idea, my biggest story. It's about that assimilation and that bringing a part of you to the table, and then like eating what else is at the table. And that's kind of what I think about cultural melding. And as long as it's like done with respect, it's some of the most fantastic things ever. Because like Coco is in English for the most part, but like all the emotions, all the story beats, everything else is universal. It's something that you don't have to be a Mexican to understand, And that's what I think makes Coco powerful, because everyone relates to family. Everyone relates to being forgotten. And they did represent our culture with a lot of respect and a lot of, not just respect, but a lot of love. And I really appreciate it. Like, Coco is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. It was actually the reason why I changed a whole lot of Alien Boy, because this story idea that I had was just some dude who could use powers, and then I realized it was missing me. It was missing my culture, and so I realized I needed to work it in. And once I worked it in, the story just started flowing so much better. It started coming out to me more, and it made me realize that I need to put myself into whatever I'm writing, even if it's not 100% part of my culture. I need to throw my culture in there because we're not represented enough,
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Sorry, I sounded like I was going to say more, but I wasn't. Go ahead.
like, I don't know many like Mexican American TV shows. The only one that I really loved that I remember was the George Lopez show, the sitcom. I fucking love
Oh
that
yeah.
show. It was like the only one that I think like I related to like a whole bunch.
Oh yeah. I watched George Lopez on that show, and I feel like I'm with my dad. Like that same kind of cringy, awkward, like that very offbeat because it's not the norm of a Latin family, like a Latin American family.
Yeah, and I like love that. And there's not that many shows that I can put my finger on at the time. There's a few that I know of, but I can't really list them off right now. That are like Mexican American themed shows, I guess. But there's not enough. Like the thing that bugs me is that like half of the major cities in California are all in Spanish. San Francisco, San Jose, Los Angeles, San Diego, Fresno.
Yeah, all the major ones, man.
They're all
Fucking
fucking Spanish, and they're all not
Santa
represented.
Cruz.
Yeah, they're not represented. They're not. We're not represented in a lot of media, and it bugs me. And so
No, it's
I think that what you need to do is kind of have a bit of cultural melding, you know, like make something. My story is meant to appeal to not just Mexican Americans. Like it's not just about our struggles, but like also like, you know, white people and everyone else who isn't Mexican. Like I don't
Mhm.
want to just be. This Gabriel Iglesias put it best. It's like I am a comedian who happens to be Latino, like because my shows premiere on Comedy Central and not Telemundo, you know, and that's kind of how I want us to view ourselves. I guess is that we bring us to the table, but we're walking up to the table to be with everyone else, you know.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing too. I think when you highlight the differences or things that make our cultures unique, you tend to bring more of that thing that makes us the same. You know,
Mm,
like maybe white families didn't grow up with the chancla or like that. You know, I know it's low hanging fruit to talk about la chancla, but like
mm-hmm,
they didn't grow up with that kind of stuff. They might not have grown up with like 1,000 uncles sleeping on your couch, you know,
mm-hmm,
or like going to the flea market, like going to the pulga all the time to like go shopping. But like white families have their own dynamic as well,
mm-hmm,
and it's something that I've gotten to live through both of them.
mm-hmm,
You know, the things that is that there are suburban white struggles. Like those are things that exist, and they're not necessarily as hard objectively as the struggles people of color face. But when we talk about the dynamics of family, when we talk about the dynamics of relationships, like interculturally, like within your own culture, I mean, it's like, or your own race or your own ethnicity, there are a lot of similarities, a lot of things that are just slight variations of the same story. Because I think that people ultimately are the same, the same. You know,
mm-hmm.
we all experience the world through the same scope, the same lens, like we see things the same way if we were in that situation. And I
Yeah,
think that there's a general approach that people take to society and to each other. And so when we talk about the way that we handle things differently, it kind of shows how similar things are in general. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I was
okay.
going to give an example, but I forgot it.
That's okay. Okay. Then this brings me to my question I had for you, because I ask myself this often: is what does being Mexican American mean to you? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, so if you talk to my mom, she'd argue that I'm not Mexican American, that I'm just American, that I'm Chicano, that I'm Latino, but I'm not like Mexican American because I didn't come from Mexico. Um, you know, I'm not a Mexican person who moved to America, or I'm not a full-blooded Mexican person who is also an American citizen or who is born an American citizen. Like I'm a half breed, you know, I'm half Mexican and I'm half white, but I'm all American. And I argue all the time like that may be true, and I would love to view the world that way, but it's not. You know, like for people, I think like me, like I'm a white skinned Mexican person,
Mm-hmm.
and I've lived my whole life having other people tell me what I am. Like I'm not Mexican enough to hang out with the Mecha kids, and I'm also not white enough to keep my mouth shut when my friends speak ignorantly about my culture. or my people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's when I go to the store with my brother and sister who are brown, they go up to the counter and the clerk talks to them in Spanish, and I show up and she talks to me in broken English. But I speak better Spanish than my siblings do. And I'm more in touch with my culture than my siblings are. Like when I worked at Disneyland briefly, not briefly, I was there for like 3 years. When I worked there, I was the one that they called for Spanish speakers. Even though there were tons of Mexican people who worked there, I spoke really good Spanish. I had my PIN. I took the test to prove it because I'm from Mexico. Not obviously from there, but like I lived there and went to school there, got an education there. For however brief a time it was, like I lived in the culture, in the motherland.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my Mexican friends have never lived there for more than been there for a couple weeks to visit or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, but I'm white and that's all you're ever going to see. And the way I speak is very white in the sense that people think people think that speaking clearly and concisely or having a vocabulary makes it white. It's inherently white. But it's a weird example. Modern Family made a comment that I thought was very appropriate, because one of the characters said, like, you guys laugh at me when I talk in English, but you have no idea how smart I am in Spanish. Like if you understood things the way, she's not saying anymore, that was the quote, but like, if you understood the way that other people spoke and you listened to them in their native language, I think you'd be surprised how intelligent people are.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be bilingual. Like my dad has to be bilingual. I mean, we speak English in the home primarily, and that's not his native tongue. And I can't fathom how uncomfortable that must be to not speak in your native language every day of your life. You're always defaulting to your secondary language. And believe me, having to speak French everywhere I go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know it was really a tangent. It wasn't really answering your question.
No, that totally answers the question. It because like I said, what I asked was, what does Mexican American mean to you? And you gave a very thorough answer. Because to me, I have kind of the same struggles. Like I can't roll my R's. So if I can't roll my R's, am I really a Mexican American or am I really Mexican? I don't speak Spanish every day, so am I really Mexican American? But like you said, other people label me all the time. I was, picked on as a kid for being a Mexican. You hear all those jokes. Did you hop the border? Do you eat beans every day? Stupid shit like that kids used to throw. I've heard it all, and it's not my choice. I'm fucking brown. I am not going to pull a Michael Jackson and bleach my skin. I am allegedly. I am. This is how I am. This is who I am. I always consider myself Mexican American because I don't think I'm ever going to appeal to like half the country. I think half the country is just going to look at me and immediately dislike me, until I give them a reason to like me, and I don't know what to do about that because I was born this way. There's nothing I can do about it. I grew up speaking Spanish. English is technically my second language. But I lost all of my Spanish basically growing up because I was surrounded by just a bunch of people who would never try to speak to me in my own language, and so I was forced to kind of become English dominant. And now that it's happened, I'm trying to slowly recapture my Spanish. So being Mexican American to me is like being thrown into the culture while you're still attached to the other one, I'm trying to find a metaphor that works, but I don't think any metaphor really works.
I think so. You mentioned how you used to speak Spanish and you kind of lost along the way. I used to really look down on Mexican kids who didn't speak Spanish, like first generations who didn't speak Spanish. Because I spoke it, and like, how could you call yourself a Mexican if you don't speak Spanish? And then it wasn't until I started hanging out with people like you who were Mexican, more Mexican than I am, and didn't really speak the language or didn't speak it super fluently, that I started realizing I learned that it's very common for Mexican parents to not to encourage their kids to speak English. because it's easier for them to get jobs and to assimilate into this culture. And so there's actually a large percentage of kids who can't communicate really easily with their own parents because they were forced to learn this other language as their primary one rather than the one that their parents speak. There's like a disconnect within the family unit because of it, and it's super common, you know. And that's it. To me, it's crazy how I was forced to learn it, but a lot of kids my age, well, I guess not kids anymore, a lot of people my age, you know, were forced to forget it, essentially, to almost, you could argue, turn the back on the culture so they can fit in easier here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know, I think there's a lot of forcing ourselves and forcing others to fit into a mold that's easier for us to fit into our own preconceptions.
To assimilate. There's a lot of pressure to assimilate.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of how I felt. Like I felt like I was 100% forced to assimilate. Like I was, not to brag or anything, but I was a really smart kid. And not that I'm not anymore, but like I was incredibly bright. Like even I hate that this is probably what a lot of people were thinking at the time. I was smart for a Mexican, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I was smart for a Mexican kid. And always had the best like English scores. I always had the best literature scores and stuff like that. I was like competing with like white kids and stuff with like how good my English and literature was. And that's because like I find literature fascinating. I love literature. I write. I love words. I love talking. I love that so much. And to be so good at something, it kind of makes you lose something else. And I think that as I grew up, I kind of abandoned Spanish to be more adept at English, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like my mom was telling me one time that in the third grade, like I used to speak Spanish all the time with her. And then one day during like the third grade, I apparently just came home and I never spoke Spanish to her again. Like it just happened. And it just, like she remembers it. I don't remember this because I don't really remember much of my childhood. Um, she remembers it like it came to her as a big shock. Like I just stopped speaking in Spanish to her. And in my mind, that only means one thing. I was, you know, so pressured by society or pressured by a specific person to just stop speaking Spanish that I did what I had to do for what I thought was my survival, you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks. Like I really hate it.
No, I try to talk to Spanish or talk to my dad in Spanish like now, and he just responds to me in English most of the time. You know, it's sad. It's not having that bond, not that connection. Sorry,
Yeah,
I don't know what that should just hit me really hard. Like your story right now just fucking bummed me out, man.
no, I mean, because that's the thing. This is where cultural melding is not good. This is where it becomes oppressive and abrasive, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying like every fucking kid has to learn Spanish, you know? But a kid should not be forced to lose their Spanish so they can be fit in, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I remember hearing in like elementary school, like, this is America, speak English. Like, that was the tone. That was the message everyone sent.
Oh
This
yeah.
is America. You speak English here. So if they heard Spanish or anything, they would immediately just shut you up. And it was bullshit. And it still is bullshit. And I'm so glad that we're kind of at a point in society where it's like everyone's super proud of who they are. And so it's more okay. But back when we were growing up, that was not the case. It was, this is America, speak English. And that's really not cultural melding anymore. It's more
No,
like
it's the more the cultures meld, the more they meld together, the more they be, the more what's the word I'm looking for? Integrated we become, the more we have to sacrifice of what makes us unique, or like what we brought with us, I guess.
Yeah.
It's almost like in order to be welcome here, you have to give something up. You have to make a trade. Like, yeah, I want to be part of America. I want to be an American. I want to be treated as an equal in this society. And so I'm going to give up the things that make my society that I come from unique and different. And I think that's really sad, because it's something that I think defies the ideology that America presents itself as this great American experiment, this great melding pot of cultures and societies. But we're not really that. We're partially that.
I do think that we are a great melting pot, and the best way for me to explain this is through food. Like, my favorite fact about the United States, and this is my favorite tidbit. Like, ever since I went to Europe and I went to Mexico, and so I've not super cultured, but I'm cultured enough to know that I fucking love the melting pot that America is. Like, just in Morgan Hill alone, I can get Chinese food, Greek food, Mexican food, and typical fast food burgers and stuff. And I can get the fucking Texas style barbecue. I can get seafood. I can get sushi.
You're right about everything except for the Texas style barbecue, because that's not how Texans barbecue.
Okay, all right. I can get barbecue, not Texas style barbecue. I can get barbecue. But the thing is that I can get all of this cultured food in just my town. Just this one place. When I was in Europe, I had there was literally zero way for me to find any of this stuff. Zero. The closest thing I could find was probably a McDonald's or Starbucks or something if I wanted something American. And I'm not saying that those cultural food is bad or anything, but I'm just trying to show that the disparity between like local and regional foods and stuff that's integrated, like here it's fucking seamless. Like I could have Chinese food tomorrow and then everything, and I can have a different ethnicity's food every day of the week and still have more options.
Oh,
and
man.
I fucking love that. That's beautiful cultural melding,
Wait till you get to LA though. Let me tell you, man, because what you're saying, I definitely agree with. It was one of my favorite parts of living in SoCal was the access to such a wide range of different foods, of different cultures. Like, I had never had Cuban food in my life. And it is different than Mexican food. Like, there are staples, they're the same, but there are things that are different. Like, I never had a lot of plantains when I was in Mexico. I wasn't something that we really ate a lot of in my area of Mexico. But it is a huge dessert in Cuban food, and I had never had sushi in my life before I moved to LA. Not because it wasn't around, but I just didn't open myself up to trying it. And I'm someone who opened myself to a lot of foods. Like, I was making okonomiyaki in my kitchen when I was 15, and stuff like that. I used to try, I loved ramen. I love takoyaki. I really love Japanese food. I didn't start eating it's I had Mediterranean food for the first time in LA. Fast food, Mediterranean food, but oh man, is kebab good. And it's basically the same as al pastor. It's a very similar concept of that slow cooked meat, cut off as in rotisseries, and it's the seasonings, the way that it's prepared that's different, the way the basmati rice goes with the meat, that soft, sweet flavor of the rice mixing with the really intense seasoning on the meat. It's phenomenal, Tzatziki sauce, man, that shit is good on everything. It's good on a burger. It's good on a gyro. It's the bomb. It's fucking phenomenal. Just give me some pita, and I'll just go to town.
That's great. I don't think I'll ever super like Mediterranean food, or maybe I just haven't tried something that's great, but I don't know. It just, Mediterranean food's not my bag, I just can't. I've tried it a couple times and I've just never fully enjoyed it, unfortunately.
The guys that own Nick the Greek, Nick from Nick the Greek, he's really good friends with my dad. Good guy, really good people. That's not good Greek food. It's Greek fast food. It's the equivalent of going to Taco Bell. Sure, it's a burrito, but.
Okay, Taco Bell or Super Tac? Because those are very different levels. I wouldn't even consider Taco Bell Mexican food at all.
Taco Bell is, unfortunately, it might not be authentic Mexican food, but it's authentic. It's not authentic. It's Mexican-ish. It's like an
It's Mexican
homage
in
to Mexican
quotations.
food. You know, it's
Yeah.
influenced by Mexican food. But I don't know. It's like I obviously go super talk, but that's very like local and like there's no big, well-known Mexican food places, and that's actually a real thing in the culinary world. There was an article about it in 2018 talking about how there was a woman, she was a chef who was one of the first Mexican or sorry Latin recipients of a Michelin star, like for a Mexican, like for a Latin food restaurant.
Hmm.
Because it's not something people do. You don't think Mexican food and think fine dining or hot cuisine.
Yeah.
But
And I
man,
don't
the
know.
flavors, they're there. Let me
Oh
tell
no,
you.
yeah. Our food is like great. It's just I think it's a problem with like it being viewed as like a lesser than food, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like tacos are simple. It's just straight up tortillas and meat, and then maybe if you get like onion, cilantro, and stuff like that, it's pretty simple. But it is so freaking good. But that's the thing. People mistake that simplicity for poverty. I mean, it kind of branched off of that, but like it's still delicious. That doesn't make it any less delicious, you know?
First of all, like not to argue with you, I'm saying like to the audience, the listeners, I mean, I'm a self-trained cook, but I've cooked in restaurants. I've been a cook, and I'm actually a pretty good cook. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the peasant dishes I think are the best way to reflect a culture or a society, you know, ethnicity's food is the peasant dishes. If they're good, they have good food because those are the thing with simple dishes is it's really hard to get them right because each individual ingredient, for example, like I made cold cannon for my family the other day,
Mm-hmm.
which is Scottish, and it's just fried cabbage and mashed potatoes, you know. But because it's only like four ingredients, the whole thing, if you fuck any part of it up, the whole dish is ruined. Whereas if you had a dish that's really like, it's really layered and complex, if you mess up a couple things, no one's really going to notice because there's so many flavors going on. But
Yeah.
on a really simple dish, like you see a lot, like if you really think about Mexican food, a great one is carnitas. Carnitas are so good. They're so labor intensive. Like it's not something that you can just throw together. It's not like asada or something. It's
Mm-hmm.
you have to take the time in the way they're preparing it. You have to season it properly. You have to let it cook properly, render the fat out properly. Like there's so many steps to creating good carnitas that you can tell the difference between good and bad carnitas. You know, like
Yeah.
Chipotle carnitas. I won't say the accent on them. They're just carnitas. They're okay. You know, it's pork, salty, savory, good umami, whatever. But like when you go to like, I don't know, for me it's my tia because my mom is white, but I'm assuming it's for you the same way with your mom and her carnitas. Like it's a labor of love. They put all day into making that meal. You know, that's not something they whipped together on a whim. They were planning on making it. My mouth is watering.
Yeah. Dude,
Sorry.
I was about to say the same thing. Unfortunately, my mom doesn't really make carnitas because we've always bought it from like a local place in Gilroy.
Mm.
But the idea is the same. The effort and the
Yeah.
taste is amazing. Oh and God, I really want a taco now. I'm gonna go to fucking Super Talk tomorrow. I know I don't I like that's my favorite place because it's like it is Mexican fast food and I love their burritos. Like I think I love them more than any other places that I've been to. Even like good Mexican restaurants in like San Jose and stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
nah, I like it here. It
Chavez,
tastes
man.
it tastes it tastes like fun. um but I think we've got enough about food. You talked earlier about um working on working at Disneyland.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, you've been to high school, right? You know,
Yes.
it's the same thing. It was great for me. I got to do high school over, but this time I knew how to do high school because I went through it. You know, I got to be popular. I got to throw parties, hang out with people, you know, like
Hmm.
It was fun. It ruins the experience for you as a guest once you work there, because you know how everything works backstage. When you go to the park as a guest, like when I worked there, we'd go all the time with friends. But the thing is, your friends also work at Disneyland because everyone works at Disneyland. And you go and it's like, cool, I'm going to go ride, Soarin', but I'm not going to wait in line because I know everyone who works here, they're going to let me on. So I'd skip the line and go on and chat with my friends the whole time, but also it's things like, you call it a work at a job and then it's not a big deal, right? Like they're never going to find out about it. But if you call it a Disneyland, half the time you call out was because you wanted to go to the park. So you have to be careful you don't get caught. And not only that, but they monitor your social media to see what you're posting, and you can get fired for posting pictures in your costume outside of work. You can get fired for posting pictures of backstage. I risked it when I met, not I guess I didn't meet them, but I said hi to and walked with Kim and Kanye for a little bit. And I took a Snapchat video of it. And like, if someone had reported me for it, like one of my friends there had mentioned it, I could get fired.
Wow.
It's really strict, and it really breaks you into a mold. You have to look a certain way. There's a Disney look. So like you have to, like, for guys, there were 6 approved facial hairstyles for men. Like they're in a book. Or no, for regular hairstyles, there's 3 facial hairstyles for men, and that's mustache, full beard, or clean shaven. No in between. No goatees, no mutton chops, no soul patch. Like you have to fit into this 50s white ideal. Like it's only recently, as in last year, Black people were allowed to wear their natural hair.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was like a big deal. I had a lot of Black friends there who had to get hair cut a certain way or had to wear hats all the time to hide their natural hair. And I'm not talking about things like dreadlocks or cornrows. I'm talking about just natural hair. If your hair naturally was really curly and it, you know, showed, like I had a friend named B whose hair was like that. She couldn't wear it the way she wanted to, or her natural way at Disney. She couldn't just let it go the way I could let my hair down.
Jeez.
Like it had to be fucking straightened or ponytailed up or under a hat. It
Wow.
was crazy. Makeup, girls couldn't wear makeup. Like they could wear it, but only specific ways. And that one wasn't super strictly enforced unless the management didn't like you, but
Hmm.
it's just stuff like that, like no visible tattoos, which I think is a really dumb rule in general, that you can't show tattoos. Cause like I have this sick ass Charmander on my hand and on my arm, and I don't want to hide that.
Hmm.
I paid a lot of money to get this Charmander. I'm not just going to fucking put it under a sleeve.
Yeah. So then that brings me to a follow-up question is, why did you stay so long then? You said you worked there for 3 years.
Oh, I loved it. I loved being there, working there, being a part of that culture of Disney. I had friends I hung out with all the time, and my work schedule was really up to me because their system, we were union. So it's really easy to take advantage of the rules and the protections we had. So I basically worked when I wanted to, not when I had to. And they couldn't fire me. I mean, they tried and they did sort of for a little bit. Then I got my job back because of the union, which is a really good example of why people hate unions. But I'm the bad egg. I'm not like an example of everyone in unions. I'm the example of a person who takes advantage of a union.
So then why did you ultimately leave? What made you leave?
My fiance started wanted to start cosmetology school and wanted to be here in the Bay Area to do it. Um, I guess that's not why I left Disney per se. So I left SoCal, but like I left Disney to move back here for a time, and then never went back to Disney when I went back to SoCal. I went to Amazon instead. But
Hmm.
it wasn't an easy decision for me. I loved Disney, but I became a really bad person there.
Oh, okay.
So
Why do you say a bad person?
it's just a lot. I think you revert a lot to being younger. I got involved with cliques. I was friends with people who, I guess kind of influenced me in a really negative way. Um, I got my priorities really mixed up. And instead of prioritizing my relationship with the love of my life or my career path as an actor, I prioritized being popular with a bunch of people who were like 3 years younger than me and who didn't give a shit about me. That's a big thing to remember working at Disney is the friends you make at Disney aren't your friends. Like they're not going to follow you after you're done. They're not going to call you up. Of all the friends I had there who said they were super close, only one of them messages me, and it's like once every 2 months. Like if that. So it's
at least they still talk to you.
Yeah, but like I said, it's more like we send 2 or 3 texts and then we don't talk for months again. So, it's rough, but I got really invested there, and I think a lot of people do. That's why there's people who've been there for like 30 years in the same entry level job.
Jeez.
Yeah, they really make you think you're a part of something or that you're special for working there, but like everyone works there.
Mm-hmm.
Like here in Northern California, and I think in other parts of the country and the world, you hear Disney and you're like, oh my God, you're to Disneyland, you're to Disney World. That's really cool. That's so, unique and different. But when you're in that area, like everyone works there. Everyone works Disney.
Yeah.
Everyone did. Everyone's going to. Every kid does. It's like a McDonald's job. Everyone works there. And McDonald's pays better.
Well, this is actually going to be the worst segue ever, but I guess it kind of fits because a lot of actors probably work at McDonald's right now, or wannabe actors work at McDonald's. But what form of acting, theater, television, or films is the best in your opinion, and why?
What do you mean by the best? Like the
what
most
do you think
lucrative?
is the No, like this is your interpretation. What do you think best means?
I guess for me,
which one is it?
Obviously, the most lucrative is movies. Big screen pays the best. Got the best benefits. It's I would say that's the best in like the monetary gain perspective. I'd say if we're talking what's like the artistic zenith of it, what is the greatest, I don't know, I guess, what's the most labor intensive? What's the most artistic? What's the most talent necessary? I'd say stage. I have no respect for being a TV actor. Like it's where your career goes when you're just trying to make a paycheck. Being on fucking, Big Bang Theory. You're not making, changing the world doing that. Like I love Glee, but I would have not said that any of those people are amazing actors except for Darren Criss and Chris Colfer. Those two are fucking amazing, but the rest can get fucked. Diana Agron is cool too, but fuck the rest of them.
But then what do you think about the trend in modern streaming services to kind of make television a higher quality of storytelling?
Well, the reason that works is because they're going into these hour-long dramas. I mean, that's also where that's the thing is this is such a multifaceted question and industry because sure, Game of Thrones is great and they're all amazing actors and that's TV, but then we're arguing the exception, not the rule. Pretty so often there's a great and it's scheduled, it's uniform, it happens constantly, it's repetitive. There's some great TV show that changes the game. The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, fucking Game of Thrones, like these shows that take a story and tell it so well with a perfect cast, with perfect writing and everything, except for the Game of Thrones after season 4. But the rest of them, they're fantastic. They're phenomenal. They stick around. They tell the story they're supposed to tell, and they leave. And that's great. But the majority of television isn't that. And streaming services are trying to create this new standard of television, but that kind of gets rid of the point of it. A lot of the shows that are coming out, I would argue, aren't very artistic. They aren't challenging. They aren't anything that breaks the mold. Just hour-long dramas.
This is where I'm going to disagree. And I do write hour-long dramas. Jesus, this is, I really like the golden age of streaming that we're in, because it means that I have an opportunity to, present my stuff and present my work and be like, hey, let's get this, let's make this thing, let's make it something. And because I write hour-long dramas, I guess I technically don't fit your idea of good. But like at the same time, because everything is raising the bar, like that if that's the lowest rung of the ladder and more people can reach it, that just means the quality of television will just go up exponentially, you know?
See,
Like
sorry, go ahead.
like that's what I like. Like I like seeing television shows that are like super good. Have you ever seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
No, you talk about it every time I see you. I'm not gonna watch it.
You fucking need to. I am telling you, you would love this show. It is probably the best example of a show that isn't a drama, that is super high quality, that is super funny and super well made. Like it is an exception to the rule, I guess, for you, but it just goes to show that this is a fantastic era to be in. It is so phenomenal. And then there's shows like Westworld. It's a drama, but it's also super thought provoking and stuff like that. And then there's, popcorn stuff like Stranger Things that is just fun to watch.
See,
but
and
like,
that's sorry, I'm gonna do a really weird thing about it. All right, and bear with me. This is a weird route I'm taking, but it's related. Okay.
Okay.
Automation of industry is the future. Like all jobs are all non-essential jobs are going to be automated. In the future, the near future, there's going to be very few jobs that aren't done by robots. It doesn't make sense for humans to do it when we have robots now that can easily do all of our jobs for us. Self-driving trucks, burger flipping robots, bookkeeping robots, like it's all going to be done automatically. When that happens, what do you think people are going to do with their time? That's a rhetorical question. I'm going to answer anyway. Art. People are going to create more art. People are going to create more. They're going to tell more stories, write more music, paint more things, sculpt more things. And so I think what we're seeing now is not an increase in quality, but an increase in quantity. So yes, there is more quality out there, but that's only because Netflix and Hulu are greenlighting everything. They're giving shows to any Yahoo who walks up with some half-baked 3 episodes of 12 for the first season. And so like there is some really great stuff coming out because
hold on, I'm going to cut you off right here because if this were true, I would be working right now. That is why I have to disagree, because I am someone who is struggling to try to break into this kind of career, and like I know the competition that I face. Like even in this age of everything supposedly being greenlit, it's still really fucking hard. And I think that it kind of makes the hidden gems and the diamonds in the rough, I guess, appear better, because everything's going to get so saturated. It's like the same thing with like YouTube when it first came out. Like you got your gems and then everyone else is just kind of there. But
the thing about YouTube,
like,
though,
I
is
think
most of those people that are big aren't gems. They just were the first to the platform. They had a strong following at the beginning. So when more people came to it, they naturally gravitated towards them because they were already big. I know that's what you're saying. I'm just, you and I seem to have hit a very passionate point in this discussion.
No, that's good. That's what the whole thing is about. But I think we answered the question. I personally, I think that I think I like film acting the most. Not because I don't think that theater acting is inferior, or not because I think television acting is inferior, even though there's obvious examples of both situations. Like the thing that I like about film, and I guess TV by extension, is subtlety. Like I love subtlety in acting, like so much. It's like the one thing that I know theater cannot capture, and it never will be able to, because that's not its medium. That's not what it's meant for. It's meant for projecting and meant for
it's a general
over
thing,
the top and like showmanship, But in film, you can get more intimate and you can get more thought provoking and more methodical than you can in theater. And television can get that too, especially with the rise now. But like,
listen,
in
I
film,
get that you're in the industry and you have to be nice to the TV actors. I don't. TV actors, fuck you guys. Your job's not hard. All right, it's the easiest acting there is.
Watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
I don't respect. Don't respect it.
Well, because then you're thinking about like sitcoms and stuff like that. Like, I sitcom isn't the pinnacle of acting. I'm not talking about like the common rabbles stuff. I'm talking
Yes,
about
and
like,
Millie
the
Bobby Brown is
highbrow
a
shit.
decent actor, and Stranger Things was good and whatever. Yes, Emilia Clarke is a good actress, but like, man, you get so many takes with TV acting. You know, like everything can be redone 1,000 times. It's not as big a budget. It's not got the same time constraints. That's all I'm saying. It's easier. It is easier objectively.
I am gonna.
Yeah, I know you're going to recuse yourself from that one because you want to work in the industry. That's fine. Wink, wink. We know what
No,
you mean,
no.
buddy. I got you.
I'm trying to find a way to explain my disagreement because I like I said, I worked on a big movie project this year, and I know it is not. It is not easy. It is. I mean, and my job was easy, but like overall, it is not easy whatsoever. But that's also a big movie, huge, reboot of
Exactly.
something. So it's a little bit different. But like I was about to say also that I don't think Millie Bobby Brown and Emilia Clarke are fantastic actresses. I think they embody their characters great. But when you see them outside of that, it kind of melts away.
Mm-hmm. Well, Millie
Because
Clarke
like
is. I love her. I adore her. If you're ever
she's great.
listening, Emilia Clarke, I will. Like you're on the list. I will leave for you. Come, show me that smile, and I'm done. I'm yours.
LMAO.
You too, Taylor Swift.
Go.
You too.
Okay. There's a question that you wanted to ask that was kind of tied to it, but what do you mean by project? Can you ask that? Can you explain that question?
What's a project that you wish you could have been a part of?
Yeah, like what do you mean by project?
Like a movie or a TV show, like some kind of artistic project. I'd say in your field that you really wish you could have been a part of. Like, I mean, like for me as an actor, man, like as an actor, I desperately wish that I could have been in Lord of the Rings. You know, not The Hobbit because that was garbage, but the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You know, or like coming in a future project, I would absolutely adore to be in any capacity acting in the Avatar, The Last Airbender live action series that Netflix is doing. Like, I think I would be a great Sokka. I think that I know a whole bunch about the lore, about the world, about the character, and then I can bring a lot to that table. I am passionate about that project. Like, what's one that you feel that way about as someone in the industry?
I don't know because I have a lot of different tastes. Like it's like the same thing with music. I like a whole bunch of everything. So like something that I wish I could have been involved in is something like the one that comes to my mind right now because it's pretty recent and I absolutely like I love this movie is I wish I could have been a part of Blade Runner 2049. Because I adore the cinematography in there, but I also really love the director's style. Like I like the long, thoughtful. Oh, sorry, I fucking had a burp for a second. I had a root beer float earlier, and it's coming back to haunt me.
Super professional podcast here, guys.
Hey, I never said I was going to be professional. I said this is the Spoken Misc. This is miscellaneous. This is technically miscellaneous. But Flavor 2049 is just super like a well put together movie, and it didn't do as well as it could have, I guess. But I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time now, and it's probably one of the best sci-fi movies I've ever seen. And that's like I wish I could be a part of it, or if not be a part of it, make something that like has that kind of resonance with someone. Like I'm same with Interstellar. Like I wish I could have been part of Interstellar. I wish I could have been a part of Stranger Things. Like I like Stranger Things like a whole lot. I wish I could have been a part of them, and I wish I could have been a part of Game of Thrones while it was still good. But like ultimately, like I'm okay with not being a part of it because the only project I want to be a part of is the projects I want to work on. And it kind of sounds conceited, but it's like, yeah, that's cool. I'd get money from that, and I'd like working on there. But I want to work on my own things. I'd want to work on my own show. Like that's the project that I wish I could be a part of because I want to make my things exist. And it's not because I don't care about other people's stuff. But it's because I just feel so impassioned for my own stuff, I guess. Because there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I wish I could have been a part of, but like I can't. So there's no point in thinking about it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like wishing I could have been a part of it shows that I kind of gravitate towards those things, but it's like, why do you want to be a part of it? And then what capacity? Like, I really wish I could have been a writer on something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you just want to be working on it to say you work on it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not me. Like, I wouldn't want to work on something to say I worked on it. I want to work on something because I can influence the story. Or I can influence the storytelling, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't really know if I can really answer besides mine because I'm conceited.
Well, I guess for me it was more like, I guess what's a project that you love, but you think you personally could improve? Like by you being a part of it, it could have been improved because there's something you would have done differently, I guess, you know? I guess it's more of that. It's like, what's a product that you think could have benefited from your perspective or from the addition of you in it? Not just like, oh, I like it. I wish I was a part of Lord of the Rings, but like, I think I could have added more to the movies by having been a part of it. Because I guess the question inside was almost like a way of acknowledging the negatives of our favorite things. It kind of forces you to acknowledge there are improvements that could have been made on something that you adore.
Oh, okay. Then I wish I could have been a part of Game of Thrones. I swear to God, I really, really dislike the way that the storytelling was handled from seasons 5 onwards. Like, it was just like, if there was a way to go back in time and somehow convince the producers to not be like that, I would hop in that time machine instantly. Yeah. And I would try to be involved in it, because like, even if it's not like, you know, like the books, or if it's not like exactly like how it should have been, that's not the problem that I have with it. The problem is that it's rushed storytelling and it's very chaotic, and like it goes to show that like, if you don't stick the landing on something, it ruins the entire thing of something long running. Like, nobody's rewatching Game of Thrones right now. I mean, I'm sure there's people watching it for the first time because they have time.
Yeah, no one's rewatching.
I don't think anybody would be rewatching it because it did not stick the landing, and it is not a good conclusion to the series. And that's something I guess I could have changed. That and The Walking Dead. Like, I when the I don't care if this is spoilers. If you haven't watched The Walking Dead at this point, screw you. When Glenn dies, and like, producers handled that whole reaction, it was just abysmal. It irked me to my core because I wanted to be in that guy's shoes. I wanted to be a producer on a show. I wanted to control the story like the way they did. And what they did was such a fucking slap across the face to the audience that I fell off the show. I literally stopped watching it because of that. I'm like, this is insulting. And so I give up on it, and I gave up on it, and I'm completely done. I haven't watched a single Walking Dead episode since the season 6 premiere, I guess, because that's when it was, I think. But like, I haven't touched it since. Gabby watches it all the time, and I will refuse to. I am not touching it. That show's tainted for me because the producers are such asshats at how to tell a story, and I don't respect them. I do not.
Hey man, read the comics and you'll have even less respect for the franchise. Let me tell you.
I don't.
It's not good.
I read the comics up to a certain point, and then I stopped. And I'm glad I stopped. I'm glad I kind of,
because it ended, and it was the last chapter was being released, and I had to know, so I read the whole thing, and like, man, it had a rushed ending.
Big oof. But yeah, I think it's more like when I know I could do better than them, I'm just saying something because I'm not saying I'm like a whiz kid or a genius or anything. But if I know I could make it better, that's a really big fucking problem for you.
Yeah, there's nothing I could do to Breaking Bad to improve it. I can't see any way to make that a better story than it was. I think it was.
Neither can I.
I'm not saying it's perfect in every way. I'm saying it was perfectly done for the time. Like everything about it was perfect for what it was. You know,
Yeah.
they told its story and it got the fuck out. It didn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah. And I respect that. And Vince Gilligan is one of those people that I really want to emulate with my own stuff. And yeah, he's goals. He's straight up goals. He stuck the landing, made a prequel that was great, and then released a movie that continues the like an epilogue for the story that works and is good. Like
Haven't seen it yet.
he's just winning. I definitely recommend it. It's not going to be like your typical movie. See it more as an epilogue, and it'll be great.
Okay.
But yeah, so those are the projects I guess I would have worked on. Is there any questions you want to jump to now that we have a kind of like
a little break.
Open slate? Yeah, little open space.
I actually do have one that I think is.
Which one?
So it's the one about morality.
Okay.
So my question is, do you believe in morality? Do you believe that it's objective, or do you think that morality is personal? And if it's subjective to you, then doesn't that imply that there is no such thing as morality?
You know, this question, when I read it, when I skimmed over it, it was the one that gave me the most like thought, because I think that because I'm coming from an atheist point of view. I don't believe in God. Shocker to people listening. I am an atheist. I do not believe in God. That does not mean I am going to shit all over your beliefs, because that's not who I am. Because I like to think I'm a nice person. But I personally just don't think that is, I guess, the way. But I think that morality is like, I don't know. It's, to me, it's always been kind of something almost inherent, because like I've always been good as much as I could be, you know, and I have my own moral compass, and it was influenced by me being brought up as a Catholic, but like it isn't there because I was Catholic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't there because I was afraid of God smiting me. It wasn't there because I was afraid of the reaction from the church. It was there because I just followed the golden rule, which was do unto others what you want done unto you, you know? And I didn't want to hurt people because I didn't want to be hurt. I'm already hurting like in general. So why would I want to hurt somebody? And so I think morality is a little bit like personal, and it is a little bit subjective, because everyone has their own different lines of where their morality crosses. Like I remember back in high school, I was like, oh yeah, I'd kill all of you guys if you were zombies. I'd shoot your guys' heads off, no problem. And like that's saying something about your morality, because somebody else might be like, oh, I could never kill my my dad or something if he were a zombie. I'd probably just run away, or I'd get bitten or something, you know? And like that's saying something about their morality. Like that's where they draw their lines, and these little God dang it, what's the word? Little fences, I guess, where they're willing to cross, and where the boundaries. There we go, boundaries. The little boundaries where they're not willing to cross. To continue, then I think there is morality because it's something that's inside of our DNA that hasn't been, that is not just exclusive to humanity. You know, doing good for goodness sake isn't exclusive to humanity, and it's not something that all animals have per se, but it is something that you can find in other creatures, you know, like goodness. You can find goodness in other creatures. You can also find evil. I am definitely not saying that you do not find, I'm not saying that you do not find evil in other creatures, but like, I think that at some point in evolution, creatures realize that working together means survival together, which means you're more likely to have kids, which means we're all more likely to have kids. And so it got reinforced and reinforced that cooperating and, you know, not being total dicks was beneficial. And that leads us to where we are now. And it's just, we can think and we have thought, and we can think about our actions a lot more than other creatures can,
Mm-hmm.
And so we make it subjective because we know where we can draw our boundaries, where we can draw our lines, and where we can step over them, and where we can, like wave them away if we need to.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you do believe in objective morality, in object morality. You think that there is a baseline, a universal guideline of like what is good and what is bad.
I wouldn't say that it's like a universal guideline. I think it's more of just a trend. It's like a natural trend.
How do you mean? Like
a common trend. Like you don't see giraffes killing their kids for no reason, Like you don't see.
no, a giraffe thing is a very specific example because for example, when dogs have a litter that they can't support, the mom will eat her young, and not just dogs, it's pigs as well. Like a lot of species do that. They'll eat their own young because they can't take care of them, so they'll kill them. Thus ensuring that the ones they can't take care of have the best chance of survival.
Yeah, and then that's where the morality becomes subjective, because to us that seems horrible because we know we can save all of them because we have the thought, but they might not have that capacity. So they're thinking those runts are going to die anyways. I might as well get my energy back because if they're going to die, I might as well take it back,
To give to the others.
And to give it to the others so I can produce more milk so I can do this and stuff like that. So in their minds, it could totally be the only truth they know, because they're kind of wired to protect it. And so it becomes, I am doing this for the others. And it's not necessarily I'm doing this because I'm evil,
Mm-hmm. But I mean, so you've heard the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Yes.
I mean, so for me, right, I'm agnostic. I do believe that there is something greater. I don't subscribe to any organized religion, although I would argue that I'm Christian leaning, or it could be argued that I'm Christian leaning.
Mm-hmm.
But like, for me, I don't believe in morality. I don't think that anything is necessarily good or bad. I think that it's like there's no objective morality. I think that anything is good or bad based on the perception of it. I mean, I do believe in things that are universally wrong, but that's my perception of it. Like, I think that murder is bad, but I support the troops. And I understand that, like, if someone was going to kill me and I killed them, I'm going to be a bad person for killing them. I had to defend myself. It's equivalent force.
Mm-hmm.
Like, rape is bad all the time. Never an excuse for that. That shit's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, then you look at things like in The Walking Dead, since we talked about previously, I got in a conversation with Haley's family about stuff like that. And then the new system, the new world order that would come from that kind of dystopian apocalypse. If we were raised in a society that viewed things differently, would we still feel the same way about it? If we grew up in a world where murder was totally normal, we really wouldn't think a lot about it. In the same way that, for example, here in America, we love dogs as pets. They're great companions. We would never eat them. But in other countries and other cultures, it's totally normal to eat dogs. Not a problem. No sweat. We don't think about it. It's just meat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you eat a lion? Yeah, I'd eat a lion. I don't see why I wouldn't eat a lion. If I'm going to eat a pig,
I don't think I would.
why not a lion? And for that point,
that's the thing, and then it becomes a little bit more subjective, and that's where I subjectively draw my line on morality. Like, I won't think you're a terrible person for eating a lion. I would think you're a terrible person for how you got to the point of eating that lion, though, because you have the capacity for reason. You have the capacity to understand your actions. You have the capacity to understand the implications of the actions you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, if you go out and you hunt a lion and you kill it for the exclusive purpose of eating it, I will think something different of you.
But why?
Than if you had done something
if I go out,
because lions are endangered. There's a difference between something that is domesticated and bred to be eaten, and it's fucked up, versus something that is part of an ecosystem that is slowly dwindling. And I think that's where that problem is. But like to talk about the dog stuff then, and it's because I understand that dogs and pigs both have intelligence and they have emotions, they have feelings and stuff like that. But like you said, I grew up in a society where the eating of pork was totally fine and the eating of cows is totally fine, and all of this is totally okay. And that shapes your morality because you don't think of it as wrong. But then there's other people who would say that this is all wrong, and people who become vegan and vegetarian don't eat meat at all. And that's where their subjective morality is that this is wrong. That's their gate.
Yeah, their line is like all life is precious. If I don't have to eat animals, why would I eat animals? And my fiance is vegan, and she's like, well, why would I eat animals? And then to the next point for her is like, well, then why would I eat stuff that comes from animals? Or like, why would I wear leather and shit? Anything that hurts or kills or takes from an animal, why would I do that when I don't have to? And I get that, but also I love a good rack of ribs. I like leather seats, you know? Like I like honey in my tea. I don't like tea often, but I like honey with it, you know, or on a biscuit or something, like eggs in the morning. Sometimes that's great, or bacon. That's normal to me and I like it. But I also see the meat industry for what it is, which is a horrible, evil thing. You know?
Yeah.
Like it is. I did FFA for years in school. You know, I raised animals. I'm a huge animal lover. And the way that we treat even the domesticated meat producing animals is awful. Like most of the chickens at Tyson Farms, which isn't a farm, it's a fucking factory that they breed, can't even walk. Their breasts are too big because of genetic modification to produce more meat, that their legs can't support the weight. Like that's disgusting. That's horrible.
Yeah.
It's like pate, you know, forcing a goose to eat so it's soft and tender and its liver is good. It's all awful. But ethical treatment of animals, I'd say, is good. PETA is awful, but
yeah, PETA's trash.
It was the worst. But like, I do support the ethical treatment of animals, even the ones for consumption. It's not animal rights; it's just animal welfare. You know, like animals should be treated with respect, even the ones we're going to consume. That's arguable, especially the ones we're going to consume. So, but like I said, for me, it's just that I'm going to eat one meat. What separates this meat from that meat? You know, in danger status, yeah, it definitely makes sense because they're all going to be gone. But if you remove that thing from the equation by arguing, for example, dogs versus pigs, why would I eat pig but not dog? For me, if someone offered me dog, yeah, I'd eat it. You know, like why not? If that's all there is to eat and I want some meat, what's the difference between a pig and a dog? Other than that, my societal influence says dogs aren't for food. But if I was in another culture, it would be, in the same way that here, cows are for food. But there are cultures and religions where cows are definitely not for food. So I'd argue that morality is less objective, you know, or I'd say it's more just societal pressure. What can you do in this society? What have we agreed so far is correct and what is wrong? Like colonialism is bad now, and the effects of it are awful, sure, but it happened so long ago the whole world was doing it. You know, no one specific person is responsible for colonialism. Everyone did it. Even the Aztecs.
But then to counter your point, slavery is morally and inherently wrong
to a freedom-loving society. I'm not so important here. I'm not a proponent for slavery. Slavery is bad. I don't
know.
But the Aztecs did it better than anybody. Let me tell you, man, Aztecs are great at slavery. They're phenomenal. You think America was good? Aztecs are better at slavery, specifically, and indoor plumbing.
But the thing is that that's inherently immoral because it imposes a will on someone else who has a will.
But morality.
And the only reason why, it doesn't seem that way is because the people that are imposing their will are creating mental constructs to dehumanize the person they're enslaving, to make them less than human. And this is an active psychological phenomenon that happened in the Nazis in Germany. It happens every time there's an oppression of a people. They actively have to create mental barriers to make this human subhuman, to make whatever they're doing to them okay.
Yeah, they have to create a paradigm where this is
which means
morally
that enslaving someone is immoral. So if it was a someone, if they considered it as someone, it would have been immoral to them.
But that's what you're saying.
So they make this person not as someone.
Exactly. They make it not a someone. They remove the part of the equation that could make it right or wrong. Of course, my headset died right now.
It's okay. I can still hear you.
Okay. Of course, like, they have to hypothetical. You know, you're
Okay, hold on. You're gonna have to repeat yourself because you just like cut out for a while.
I said, of course, they have to dehumanize them. They have to create a situation, a hypothetical, where what they're doing is valid and correct, because to them it is correct. The thing is, to these people, it is correct. I'm not saying it is. I'm a believer that slavery is wrong and awful, and any dehumanization and any what's the word I'm looking for? Holy shit! How could I forget the word? Oppression. There we go. Any oppression of people is wrong. I think it's incorrect. But there are those that think it is correct. How do we decide who's right and wrong? Well, traditionally, we go by the majority vote. If most of society disagrees with you, you're wrong. You know, that's why we think slavery is wrong, got rid of it now, because most people now think it's wrong. But most people at the time thought it was okay. That doesn't mean it's right if you're going based on the standards of today. But if you look at it based on the standards of the time when there was a different perception of the world, to them, they were right. To a more advanced society, they were wrong.
The last thing you had said was, or the last thing I heard was, you cannot judge a society back then by the standards we have of today.
Well, not that we can't, but that's, I think, where you see things, or where you would argue that they're immoral, is from the perspective of an advanced society. We are more educated, we are more unified now, more melded together. And so, of course, now we see the actions of the past as wrong, but at the time, that was the state of the world. Like the whole world felt that way. You know, so is it wrong? Yes, by today's standards, it's wrong. And as a person who is more moral now than arguably in the past, it's wrong. But at the time, it's all that people knew. And so to pass the judgment as if it's the same thing, I think, is where I think most people are naive or just incorrect in their judgment. You know,
I disagree completely because of the same golden rule: do unto others what you want done unto you. Like, if you think it's wrong to have yourself enslaved, to enslave others is a breach of your own morals. Like, unless you're like totally okay with also you being a slave, no matter what you do, it's immoral. And people thought that this act was immoral at the time too. There's lots of documentation, especially in the United States, in the northern states, where they think slavery is immoral.
But they fought a war over it.
Yeah, but then at the same time, they still also thought that African Americans and Black people were subhuman. So it's like I don't judge them by the society at the time. Like, people are at the time already knew this was immoral and this was already wrong.
But people had been doing slavery for a very long time before American ideals came into play. And like you said, even the people that argued for the abolishment of slavery, like Abraham Lincoln, didn't free the slaves because he was a good guy. You know, it was because it was a military tactic to weaken the South so that the war would end sooner. Like we act like Lincoln was this champion of justice and social equality, but like the dude just needed to end a war and unify a country. It wasn't about Black people. You know, if anything, Frederick Douglass did more to free the slaves than Lincoln did.
I mean, I don't think that it was a military tactic. It was definitely.
That's a fact.
Where's this fact? Where is it written?
It's. I mean, I can pull up the sources for you if you'd like.
No, don't do it right now. If you're gonna fucking combat me, send me a message later with the truth. But like, I don't think that like it was just for the sake of, oh, we got to defeat the South, you know. I feel like it was definitely a political decision, but I think it ultimately, like, it proved correct. Like, everyone would agree, great move, stand up
Yeah.
dude. Like, even
Well,
if he did
everyone
it
who's
for
not
the
an ass
most
backwards.
wrong, yeah, like everyone, even if he did it for like the wrong reasons, it's still a morally good act.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with that. It was a good thing he did. I'm just saying that a lot of good choice. I guess a lot of the good wasn't completely altruistic. You know, I don't believe in altruism. I don't believe that people are good, or in generally that people are good for the sake of being, or do good things purely for the sake of doing good. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that it's inherent in humanity to do good things. You know, Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that guy still owned and raped slaves, you know? So, like, yes, historical figures did do a lot of good stuff, but they were also pretty shitty people by today's standards. He got away with doing that because at the time, like you said, they didn't consider African Americans or people of color as humans. And it's not just historical figures. I mean, like that. I mean, look at Mormonism. You know, a belief in Mormonism is that Native Americans were colored because they were evil. God colored their skin to match their sins. That's a belief that stuck around till like the 70s. You know, that's not long
Jeez.
ago. That's not a historical thing. That's like modern history. People have
Mm-hmm.
been fucked up forever because their morality was skewed, and the majority of the people that they were involved with, the society around them, the culture around them, believed that way. And that
But
changed when the majority culture changed.
then that's the same thing. Like, just because it's not the majority doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Um, so I disagree about. Oh, and actually, I guess I kind of do, but for a different way, about things being actions being altruistic. I I don't think anything can be 100% completely altruistic, because that's literally impossible with humanity. It is physically, biologically, and emotionally impossible. Because when I do a good act, like, even if I didn't think about it, even if it was instinct, technically I activated the reward center of my brain and I got a rush of endorphins and good feel good chemicals because I did a good thing. And did I do that good thing because I wanted that rush of good feeling chemicals? Technically, yes, but I don't expect anything else out of it, you know? So like,
Mm-hmm.
it's that, so like altruism, like pure altruism is, I think, in my opinion, literally impossible. But the near approximation of it is totally doable. Like, I like helping people. I feel good when I help people. And if I'm helping people to feel good, that's not altruistic. But you know what? Fuck it. Like, that's still a good thing that I'm doing. Like, every time I think about this, I think about David Dobrik. And this is a weird transition from what we were just talking about. Um, but like, you know how he gives away like shit and money and stuff to a bunch of people like all the time on
No,
YouTube? Okay,
I've
well,
never seen
David
David
Dobrik.
Dobrik.
Okay,
I've seen like
so then
Mr.
let me.
Beast though.
Okay, well then let me scale back. David Dobrik is a YouTuber. He's very rich. Um, he's also a really, I guess, nice guy because he gives away a lot of stuff on his YouTube channel, and he's funny, and he has a bunch of friends that he hangs out with. Um,
This sounds like
but
Mr. Beast.
yeah, he's a little bit like it. I don't know Mr. Beast at all though. But the idea is that he gives things away. His actions aren't altruistic, not at all. Like, even if he's doing it from the goodness of his heart, they can never be altruistic because they feed him views. It gives him
Which means
more, yeah, which gives him views, gives him more money, and makes him able to do this again. So it's like, even if he is doing it out of the goodness of his heart, it's not ever going to be altruistic because of that complication. And that's not to say that he's a bad person, but that's just what's going to happen, you know? Like, the views that he gets on like giveaway videos are probably super high, and everyone like likes him because he's a nice person. But that's technically not altruistic. Like, even if he's doing a lot of good, it's never going to be altruistic because altruism is impossible.
yeah, I mean, look at Mr. Beast and Mark Rober. With the Team Trees, their goal was to plant 20 million trees by 2020. and they did it with a month to spare. It's still ongoing. They're still planting tons of trees. Every donation is $1. You know, a dollar is a tree. Every donation of $1 is a tree. They've raised so much, and they do a lot of good. Like that Mr. Beast they donated like $7.5 million, something like that, to COVID-19 research through these charities that he's organized, like with the YouTubers, like creating content, and people donate, and it's good. But these things also feed his fan base. It creates more viewers, which gives more money to him to do these kinds of things. You know, and so it's is it good for the world? Is it good for society? Yes, but it's also really good for you, Mr. Beast. You know, and let's not pretend like you're out here suffering. You're not the Buddha.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. Like, even if you're good, like you can never be technically altruistic, because at the end of the day, even if you don't get anything out of it, you will still get happiness, and happiness is a selfish feeling. And it's okay to be selfish. And that's where I'm like standing on altruism. Like, it's okay to be selfish. Like, I want to do things because it makes me feel good. And that's not altruism, but that's okay. But I think I don't want to end it on this note, because we have so many good questions left. But we have been recording for like 2 hours, and we're hitting like the 10-minute mark. And we can always revisit these questions later on a different episode or something. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do rapid fire questions of all the remaining questions, and I'm gonna like host it, like, I guess, because I have the questions in front of me right now, and we're just gonna go through them. So you asked me, why are people so afraid of failure and confrontation? Why is it believed that confrontation and aggression are synonymous? I think that people are afraid to fail in general, because failure is embarrassing, and it's like, it's just not, it doesn't make you feel good. It makes you feel worthless. It makes you feel incompetent, and nobody wants to face that. But the thing is that once you learn to confront that feeling of incompetence and feeling of worthlessness, and you move past that failure, you can become something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, my first drafts of all my stuff that I've written they're trash. They're horrible. But once I got over the horrible part and I kept working on it, eventually they became something great, you know?
Mm-hmm.
As for the second part, why is it believed that confrontation and aggression are synonymous? Because that's just the way some people are, because they don't know how to control their emotions as well. They don't know how to temper their themselves. They don't know how to temper themselves. Like, we disagreed on a lot of stuff during this podcast within the past like half hour, but I would like to say that we confronted it without being overly aggressive. I do think we were a bit aggressive, but like, that's just, we know how we are. We know that's kind of what happens, and it's part of the reason why we're great friends. Okay, I really wanted to talk about this, but we didn't have a lot of time. The sexuality question.
The first one on the list.
Yeah, but why do you think people are so obsessed?
Yeah. Oh wait, no, sorry. I was looking at a different one. The e-girls and OnlyFans stuff.
So yeah. I think that people are just inherently sexual, and people like to deny it all the time because they don't want to accept that we're just like other animals and that we have instincts and urges.
Do you want to read the question off?
Okay, yeah. Oof, sorry. Okay. Why do you think people are so obsessed with sexuality? And look at the rise of e-girls and OnlyFans and Patreon stuff. Do you think there's a reason why there aren't more males profiting off sexuality? So people are obsessed with sexuality because that's just how we are. We're wired to think about sex constantly, like all creatures are, or sexually reproducing creatures are. But when it comes to why aren't there more males profiting off their sexuality, I think it's because, one, it's more, I know this is going to sound fucked up, but it's easier for a dude to find a different kind of job that pays well enough to support yourself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, especially since like the West was settled, like some women were not did not have agency enough except in their own bodies to do stuff, and then that led to rises in prostitution and stuff like that, and that's how they retained and grabbed their power back through their sexuality, you know, because
Mhm.
society won't tell them they can do anything else. And so that's what this one thing that they could do. They filled that niche and they dominated it, and it worked out, for the most part, I guess. And that's kind of what's happening again. It's like this: there's a niche that wants to be filled. Women are filling it, and like it's working out for everybody. A lot of like lonely simps are fanboying over their e-girls, and they're
Looking at
giving
you,
them money.
Pokemon and dabs.
and they're getting sexual gratification out of it, and the girls are getting money. It's like it's a win-win. I do think that people are trying to push like this evangelical view on sex constantly, though, and I think it's ridiculous to hide from sex and to hide that we're sexual beings, because we always have been. Okay, next question.
It's a perspective.
Yeah. So what does respect mean to you? Is it something earned or is it something given freely?
Oof. So since we're going lightning round, fast lightning round here. So respect, I think there's a duality to it. There's two different ways you can respect someone. There's respect as a person and an equal, and then there's respect as an authority. And I think that respect as an equal or as a person in general should be freely given, but respect as an authority needs to be earned. I think that in general, we should respect that every person is on par or about. I don't think that many people are better than other people. I believe there are plenty of people who are worse than the majority, but like in general, you should approach each person with respect until they give you a reason to not do so, as far as being treated as an equal. As an authority or as someone who's more intelligent or above you or has more power over you, I think that should be constantly questioned, and that it's something that has to be really earned and proven by somebody that they are worth that respect. Because people tend to conflate the two. They think that respect is an all-encompassing term. I don't agree with that. I think that as far as respect goes, there's two different approaches to it, and they both have a vastly different approach in how you're supposed to handle it.
I agree. I agree to that. All right, next question. Do you think you have ever had or have an arch enemy or nemesis?
No, I don't think. I don't think
There's
anybody
nobody you
cares
just
about me enough to hate me that vehemently.
you don't have anybody that you just fucking hate for no reason?
I mean, there are people that I dislike, but the people that I hate are people that I hate for a reason. But I still wouldn't call them like my enemy or something, because it's not like they're actively getting in the way of my life, or they're like someone that's actively against me or my goals or ambitions. There's people that I don't like. I just don't meld with their personality.
Okay, fair. There was one question that I wanted you to clarify a bit. Is exclusivity something that should stay, or should all things be inclusive? What did you mean by that?
I meant in the form of like VIP groups, or like, country clubs or men's only clubs, stuff like that. Like, do you think that that things should remain exclusive? Like a good example, I guess, would be like the Boy Scouts versus the Scouts. Like, should there be a niche for specific groups of people, or should everything be inclusive for everyone to approach things that are outside the norm? The reason I ask it is also because it might be something that you can come and be a part of, but it's really not for you. It's for people who are only in this specific situation, and you won't get anything out of it. And we also won't benefit from having you there. So, like, should we include you, or should we be exclusive?
I think inclusivity with respect should totally be fine. Like if someone like take for example the LGBT community, you can be an ally. That doesn't mean you're a part of the community necessarily because of your sexual orientation, but you are included in a support of it, you know? And that's the kind of inclusivity I think is fine. Whereas like something like a boys only club, I always think of Little Rascals, like and how at the end they just brought the girls in because like it's dumb. It's dumb to hate girls, and that's kind of what they learned. Like it's just dumb to not include girls, because it's like if there's nothing that is different about the way that you approach something between like male versus female or something else, like what's the point of separating in the first place then?
Mm.
Like there's something to be said about like sports and stuff that it has a major biological difference and physical differences and stuff. Like I don't think that women should be competing in like men's sports. Like the WNBA and NBA should not be mixed because like it's not going to turn out well. It's just not going to be. It's going to be a shit show. Like it's just not going to be good because there's things that are objective truths, and it kind of sucks. But like that doesn't mean we can't have very good, WNBA stars, and we can't have a great NBA stars. It's just like if you mix them together, that inclusivity would just not work out for anybody. It just would just be a farce. And stuff like that, I think, would not work. But like other stuff like the LGBT community and being an ally and stuff like that, respecting it, I think that kind of inclusivity works.
Okay.
Then I don't want to make this one a lightning round question, but I guess I'll have to. What's the worst memory you have, and why is it the worst?
The worst memories I have, I'm going to kind of keep personal. Those ones are for me.
Mm-hmm.
They live, with me in my nightmares and in my really dark moments of depression. But I guess the worst that I'd feel comfortable sharing, shit, man. I don't know. There's a lot. I think one of them would be my dog dying. When I was a kid, it was the first time I dealing with mortality.
Mm-hmm.
My dog died in my arms. I was 8 at the time. He got a parvo, so it was a really slow death and painful. And he, I cried holding him while he like shit all over me because he couldn't hold his bowels in. He was suffering for a long time, and he kept holding on, and I kept being sad and praying and crying and hoping that he would get better. And then it just clicked in my head that he's suffering and I'm making him suffer. I'm making him stay here for me. And so I gave him permission to die, essentially. I told him that it was okay. You can go, like I'll be all right. You can go now. It's okay. I love you. And then he died. Like in that moment in my arms, when I was ready. He waited for me to be comfortable or to be prepared before he left, and I would say it's one of the few times in my life I haven't felt abandoned. And it was something that was really difficult for me because I never dealt with death before, and I've never dealt with loss like that before. And I was at a very young age, and it was very personal. And so that's, I think, one of my worst memories, because whenever I've had a pet die, it always kind of goes back to that. And it's also like, what kind of relationship with anyone, or like a pet or anyone, could really compare to that bond, that kind of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I understand that. I lost Mango earlier in the year, and then Donut passed away like literally 2 weeks ago, and then Luna got hit by a truck, and like,
oh my God,
I was like literally right in front of me. She got hit, and I was so scared of like watching. Like I thought I had just watched my dog die, and it was terrifying. It broke me. It's one of the few things that broke me. But luckily, she's okay. She's walking around. She has a little bit of like a hobble in her step, but she's toughening it out. She really scraped by with nothing but minor, like a minor fractures and like a whole lot of bruising, and I'm guessing a lot of spraining too. But she's okay, so that's good. I totally relate to that whole mortality thing. Like it opens your eyes to a lot of stuff. But to keep the subject light, I guess, or not to keep it light because it wasn't light, to make it light. What's the best memory you have, and why is it the best?
Best memory. I think it was Haley's birthday, a couple years ago. It wasn't in a good time. Like things were really bad and things went really wrong. But the trip itself for her, I had planned it out for us to go to San Diego for a couple days. I booked us a room at a hotel. Like I got everything handled as a surprise for her. I didn't tell her what it was. And I had bought us tickets to go see John Mulaney, his at the time, the new stand-up, when he was doing Kid Gorgeous. And Haley's like in love with John Mulaney. Like he's like the top of her cheat list. Like she's in love with the guy in the world. I think he's fucking hilarious. He's one of the greatest comedians in my opinion. I think he's hilarious and funny and pointed and smart. And we went, had a really good time. The hotel, we had fun exploring San Diego. Had like one of the best burgers of my life, and had pierogies with a burger instead of fries, which is interesting. And I stand by it. It's delicious. You should try it. And then we stage doored it, so we waited after the show, and we got to meet John Mulaney on Haley's birthday. We have a picture with him, and she's so happy, and it's one of the like most genuine, true smiles that I've seen, like on her, and it makes me incredibly happy to think about it, because selfishly I got to give her that, but also it's like, here is this person who is so full of life and love and joy, and I get to share in that. I get to be a part of her life. Like, how lucky am I that through all the shitty things that I am and that I've done, she chooses me in her life. So it's like a really hopeful thing too.
That's wonderful. And you know what? I know we have one more question, but that's the topic that we definitely cannot knock out in a lightning round. So we're going to end this episode right here. Thank you so much for sharing that story, Nico. That was really, really wonderful. Really nice. Yeah, this is the end of the episode. Thank you so much for being here, Nico, and joining me at the start of this podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's something really special, and I'm really happy to be part of it.
Thanks. I'm glad we're doing this, I guess. Do you want to promote yourself, or do you want me to promote you?
Shit, man. Just check me out on Twitch, I guess, at nicothevirgin.ttv. And if you're into video game gameplay, then that's there, and I'm working hard on it to make it better for everyone. That's basically all I got going on.
All right. It's great having you. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you, buddy.
Have a good night.
You too.
Hey, so that's the end. I hope you all enjoyed hearing us talk. If you want to ask your own question, argue with something either of us said, or come on the show, send me a voice message through Anchor. There's a link at the bottom of the show page wherever you're listening. Or you can send me a message on social media at the Spoken Misc on Instagram and Twitter, or post on my rudimentary subreddit r/the Spoken Misc. You could also send the messages to yours truly at Franny AA on everything. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next show.